Good morning, everybody. Thank you all very, very much for taking the time out of your day, out of your schedule to be here today. I really appreciate it. I know all of the partners here appreciate it. I think most of us in this room are really excited, actually, to be here today. A little history about myself. I have been working at the DEP for 28 years. I am a Rutgers College of Engineering graduate, and I started at the DEP, and I'm still here at the DEP. Over my time at the DEP, I've worked in a lot of exciting programs. I've worked on a lot of exciting projects. It was in 2011 that I was assigned to the CSO project, and I have to say there are very few projects that we get to come across that we feel really make a difference. And when I look back on my 28 years that I've spent at the DEP and how many extra years are added onto that, we'll see how the college bills go for the kids. But when I look back on my 28 years, this is one of the major projects that I feel I can look back on and I could say, we made a difference. I made a difference. And by all of you who have taken the time to be here this morning, right now, you, every single one of you, are all making a difference. We are on the ground floor right now of setting the stage for CSO abatement in New Jersey today, right now, with this permit we're about to issue, with all the work that all the municipalities and the sewer treatment plants and the community groups are going to be engaging in. We're starting a process. We're starting this ball rolling, and it's going to roll for the next 20 years, 25 years. We're on the ground floor. We have an opportunity right now to build the foundation of how we're going to address these combined sewer overflows in New Jersey. And I know I'm very excited to be part of it. It's a huge, great project, and I particularly encourage all of you to please stay involved, become more involved, get more partners, because it's something that can't be done alone. The department, DEP, can't do it alone. EPA can't do it alone. New Jersey Future, any town or municipality or treatment plant can't do it alone. It has to be done together. It's too big. But I think we're here. We're all proving that we can do this, so let's get going. I'm going to talk to you a little bit about some of the technical requirements in the permit. Normally, to understand what a long-term control plan is, it's a 5-day workshop. And I'm going to put this in about 12 or 13 minutes talking about a long-term control plan. So we're going to kind of zoom through. A lot of folks in the room have familiarity with it. Some of you don't. But we're just going to kind of zoom through and give you a general idea of what we're talking about for a long-term control plan. Most of us understand about combined sewers, what they look like, what they're involved in. For anybody who's maybe their first introduction or doesn't have a full understanding of it, on the left, it's bright and sunny. The sun is out. We have all of our dry weather flow going down to the treatment plant. So in your newer towns, in your newer municipalities, there's two sewer systems in the street. One carries your stormwater to the river, and one carries the wastewater to the treatment plant. In our older urban cities, we have combined sewers, meaning there's one sewer that carries everything. And so on the sunny days with no dry weather, there's lots of room in that sewer, and everything gets to the treatment plant for treatment. When it rains, that sewer fills up. Maybe the sewer isn't big enough. Maybe the pump station isn't big enough. Maybe the treatment plant isn't big enough. Whatever the reason, it cannot all get to the plant for treatment, and it backs up and it overflows where it says outflow pipe to the river. And that's a combination of stormwater, wastewater, and industrial waste. And in New Jersey, we have 217 of these right now. And so when I first got the program in 2011, I was I had to sit back a little bit and say, oh my gosh, 217, how in the world are we going to address these? But I think we can do it. And I took a look around, as Dan mentioned earlier. We're not alone in this. There's a lot going on in our neighbors. Some maybe different numbers in some of the communities. But if we look at New York has 937 CSOs that they have to deal with. Our neighbors on the west, Pennsylvania, has 1,569 CSOs. So our 217 CSOs suddenly seemed a little bit more doable here. But the thing to recognize is these are the tough nuts. These 217 are the ones that are left. If it was easy, if the answers were quick, if they were implementable, if they were affordable, easy, done, they would have already been done. And a lot of our communities have already done that. So the 217 that are left, it's going to take all of our effort over a period of time to eliminate these, reduce these, and reach our water quality goals. Now, the permits themselves, pretty lengthy, long, big, involved documents if you're taking the time to look through them, but they have two main categories. They have something called 9 minimum controls, and they have something called a long-term control plan. The 9 minimum controls, the towns have been required to meet these since 1994. These are low-cost things: cleaning your sewer lines, maximizing flow to the treatment plant. There's a whole list. We'll get to the list. But they've been in the permit since '94. What this permit does is it enhances those 9 minimum controls. So they're not new, they're enhanced. And I'll give you one great example that we're really proud of to have. Under the original permit, you're required to have public notification. I mean, that's a federal requirement. The original permit for public notification was an outfall tag on the outfall. That doesn't do it for public notification, obviously. Now, our new permits, we've got signs. There are going to be signs required at every outfall or near the outfall if they're submerged to warn the public not to be near the water when it's raining, that there's the possibility of a raw sewage overflow. There's going to be a phone number to call DEP if you see a dry weather overflow. We're having flyers and leaflets prepared for the communities. We're also requiring some type of notification, whether it's a website or a hotline, that a community member can go to and know whether or not that CSO is active in that waterway at that moment. And we took a look at what New York did. New York's got a nice website. You can click on the waterway and it shows red or blue whether or not CSOs are active. And so we're looking for that also. So that's just one example of the 9 minimum controls that we've enhanced. Now, the long-term control plan, that's a whole nother piece of work. And there's 9 parts to that as well. And what that long-term control plan does is the first part, it talks about, let's characterize our system, what's out there. The second part says, let's look at the alternatives, what kind of alternatives are there to take care of these CSOs. And the third part talks about, let's choose our alternatives and put together an implementation plan. And all through all of these components, we're working back and forth with the department, back and forth with the EPA, lots of community involvement so that we can do what the community would like to have and focus on those areas in the community that they would like to focus on. That's it in a nutshell. Once we get that long-term control plan in, the department will be approving pieces of it as it comes along. Once the final piece is approved, we're going to ask the implementation start, which is not to say that there isn't a lot happening right now. There's a lot going on in our communities. Sewers are being separated. Stormwater pump stations are being put in. Treatment plants are being expanded. So all that's happening right now, and it will continue to happen, and it can be written into your long-term control plans, and you can get credit for doing that. So keep doing what you're doing, and let's look forward to the next part. Quick list of your 9 minimum controls. Again, these are intended to be low cost. They've been in the permit for a long time. We've enhanced them. If you haven't taken a look at the permit, you could take a look, and we've got really detailed. We've really looked forward, for example, on the pretreatment requirements, the maximizing use of the collection system, operation and maintenance. We've got a lot of stuff in there. Hurricane Sandy taught us a lot of lessons. And so for your O&M, we've got a lot of emergency system SOPs that we want in there. As far as some other things. So there's a lot of stuff going on with the 9 minimum controls. 9 elements of a long-term control plan. Here's your 9 elements. You take a look at that. I'm going to very, very briefly, eagle view, talk about just one: system characterization, monitoring, and modeling. This all has to get done in year 1. And year 1 is coming really quickly because most of my staff is back at the office right now finishing up these permits to issue them final. And we intend to issue them in January, before the end of the month. So the time is now. We need to work now to get together. So I'm going to talk really quickly in that, but keep in mind there's 9 parts to the long-term control plan. It's a lot of work. It has to get done, and we will get through and do it. So system components for characterization. First is your physical characterization. How many CSOs are in your community? What parts of your community are combined? What parts are separate? How many pump stations do you have? What part of your town goes to which CSO? We want to take a look at showing all of your major interceptors. Look at your capacities. Look at your receiving waters. Are your CSOs going into freshwater or saline water? And what does that mean as far as water quality? We want you to look at all your different sewer sheds. So again, which neighborhood is going to which CSO? What's happening when you have rain in that neighborhood? How big is your pump station? What about your satellite communities? So this is a big task that we're asking that happens here. We're also looking at land use, characterizing your land use, because we've got to take a look at how much stormwater flow is getting into the CSOs. How much is open space? How much is low density, medium density, high density? And there's a lot of calculations that EPA's got a lot of guidance on, which can help you put together your long-term control plan, which talks about how you use this information to figure out how much is going out your CSO and when is it going to happen. We're looking at a very detailed hydraulic analysis of your entire system. Quantify your dry weather flow, quantify your wet weather flow. Do you have metering? Where are there bottlenecks? So we're taking a total ground up approach. So before you can even talk about what alternatives are out there, whether it's green or storage or treatment plants, you have to know your system. And we know in New Jersey, these are complex systems. They're owned by multiple entities. Some towns own some parts of it. Treatment plants own other parts of it. Other parties might operate the CSO and not own the CSO. And so there's a lot involved, and we need to really know what we're working with. Once you have all this information, do a flow balance diagram, take a look at how much is going into your treatment plant. One of the alternatives is increasing flow at the treatment plant. So so the communities and the treatment facilities need to work together as a team. It's not going to work in isolation. If your treatment facility can take additional wet weather flow, every gallon that treatment plant can take is one less gallon going out your CSO. And so we need to know how much can the treatment plant take. There are opportunities. We've done, for those of you who have come to my workshops that I've done throughout the year, and New Jersey has done throughout the year, we get a lot of discussion about bypass and blending and what can happen with those types of flows. There are opportunities as an interim measure, as part of your long-term control plan, to allow blending at the treatment plants. And I'm showing that here, where we're blending our secondary treatment and our primary treatment. You're still meeting all your permit limits, but we can push a lot more flow through the treatment plants. And if we're getting some treatment at the plant, that's a heck of a lot better than no treatment at all at your CSO. We're also looking to characterize your receiving waters. Again, what type of waterway are you discharging into? What is the biological data? What's the sediment? What's happening? Is it tidal or is it non-tidal? What are the impairments? Is it listed for pathogens? Is it listed for DO impairments? Where are your sensitive areas? And part of your long-term control plan says where your sensitive areas are, maybe where you have a lot of public use in that area. In some places, people are using the waters for bathing and kayaking and swimming. So those areas should get your first attention. So if you've got a whole list of CSOs, you perhaps want to take a look at your sensitive areas first and see how you can do those. What's happening with TMDLs, which are ongoing water quality studies in the state. Again, and I think I'm pretty much finished talking on the monitoring, characterization, and modeling, but that's just one. There's 9. It's pretty complex. It takes a lot of work to get through that, but hopefully most of our communities have started work on this and they know what's involved. Now, when you're looking at your alternatives, so the first part of the plan is what do we have? What is our system made of? Where's our combined? Where's our separate? What are we going to do about this? Now you've identified your CSOs. You know where they are. So what do we do about this? There's a number of alternatives that we've listed in the permit. We've asked you to look at these. If you can think of more, fantastic. Do more. We've asked everybody to look at green infrastructure. And you'll hear us talk today about green and gray. And just to be real clear, green infrastructure, these are projects which work with the stormwater, the clean stormwater, before it enters the system. So anytime we can keep the stormwater out of the system, that's less flow going out the CSO. The gray projects are projects that work with the flow after it's already been combined. So it's sewage, industrial waste, and stormwater. So we've got green infrastructure. We've asked every single municipality, every single permittee, evaluate green, see where you can do green in your town. To the extent that we can keep it out of the system, create more parks and more greenways, that's where we want to go. There's source separation, actually separating and making 2 sets of source. That's not always possible. The streets are narrow. We always don't have the possibility to do that. I&I reduction. So these are in your satellite communities. So when we're looking at our permittees, who are the combined source systems, oftentimes there's towns around you that have separate systems, but they have a lot of extraneous flow. Maybe there's cracks in the pipe or broken pipes. That's called I&I. And if we can reduce those upstream towns, if we can reduce their I&I, then that also will allow more flow to get to the treatment plant and less the outfall. End of pipe treatment, there's possibilities. We can maybe do some treatment at the CSO itself. Primary treatment followed by disinfection. Where that's possible, excellent, we'll go for that. Storage, online and offline storage. So we can do some tanks, some holding. In some of the towns, there's not a lot of room. But I'll give a great example. You can go visit City of Trenton treatment facility. They have a 26 million gallon lagoon. And what happens with their flows is when they get high flows from their combined sewers, they route it into that 26 million gallon lagoon. And when the dry weather comes, it gets fed back into the treatment plant. They had the room for it, they had the space for it, and it really works for them. They've reduced their discharges to once, maybe every 3 or 4 or 5 years. So that was a great solution that worked for them. And like I talked about again, expansion of your treatment plant. So any possibility of expanding your treatment plant, that's going to take more flow also from the CSOs. Again, it's some just CSO collection system, maximizing flow. Here's some big pipe projects that are happening. There's a lot that you can do on the local level in order to get that done. Here's storage. This is a picture of some tanks that are holding storage, some large pipes that can hold storage. So you can look in your system if you have abandoned treatment plants that can be utilized for storage or possibly some treatment. That'd be great. We can do that as well. There's also treatment available at the end of the pipe. We can work through those as well. Green infrastructure, again, we'd like to do green. Green is great. It works for a lot of good reasons. It's really great to get community involvement so folks can see some real difference in their town. I do have to tell you, not to paint too pretty of a picture, but basically across the country where we've done green, it's maybe 10% or 12% it can capture. So you're not going to be able to take care of your whole project with green. You're going to have to need some gray solutions in there as well. When you're doing your long-term control plan, we want cost performance considerations. We want you to get the best bang you can for your dollar. So come up with your alternatives. Which ones are going to work best for you at what price? And we're looking for that. So this is called knee of the curve. Again, anything that you can do and get a big bang for your buck, go ahead and do it. When you get up to E, you can see it's a lot of cost and not too much incremental improvement. And so we understand that. The national policy understands that. We say do as much, leverage your money the best way you can right now. And we're not looking for, 99.99999% perfect. Let's see what we can do today. This is a big project. This is a 20 or 30-year performance we're working on. Your CSO controls, once you've come up with what you want to do for your town, and it could be one of those 6 or 7 solutions, it can be all of them. Probably for most of us, it's going to be a combination of all of them. Talk about your priorities, your conditions. How are you going to protect water quality? Make sure you've got your public engaged and active, part of your planning, part of your solutions, and part of your implementation. Again, a quality long-term control plan. They're coming into us, and I want to see quality plans. We want to make this work. This isn't just going through the numbers. This is real. This is happening. We're going to make this work. Make sure you're choosing appropriate monitoring. You're choosing in the permits, they talk about 2 approaches, presumptive, demonstrative. You can read about those. One of the big things, we need to coordinate our LTCPs across multiple municipalities. So you've got a treatment plant, and then maybe they have 4 towns or 6 towns or 2 towns or 8 towns that are serving that treatment plant. It's not going to work if every town does their own individual long-term control plan. It won't work. We need all of the towns and the treatment plants to work together, and we're asking that you do one long-term control plan for your entire system. And that's the only way it's going to work if you think about it. The treatment plant is going to accept a lot of flow. So what happens in town A? What happens in town B? Town C flows through town B and town A. Anything you do in one municipality is going to affect all your other municipalities. And you need to work together as a team. And it may be that you decide as a team, we're going to tackle these CSOs in this town in years 5 through 10 because maybe this town has some funding available. And we're going to tackle the CSOs in this other town in years 10 for 15 because that's in their cycle when they'll have funding available. And you can work through them as a cooperative member to piecemeal through each of your municipalities and decide how it's best to work for you. But again, working in isolation, it would be disjointed, and I'm not really sure how it's going to work. So we've put a lot of incentives in the permit to encourage all of you to do that. Okay, now this permit is coming out in January because of our public notification requirements. It will be, we have to public notice it, we have to wait 30 days, there's a big process involved with that. And we also start permits being effective on the 1st of the month. We're looking for our permits to be effective on April 1st. So you'll see final permits in January, they're going to be effective in April 1st. Most of our milestones are anchored to the effective date of the permit, EDP. And in our first year, I'm just going to highlight real quick in the first year some of the things that have to get done. And this is why, again, I'm glad you're all here because we need to hit the ground running on these sorts of things. We're looking at updating your O&M manuals with emergency plans, CSO SOPs, and asset management plans. These aren't just words. These are big, involved projects. You need to be working on them now. So this has to be done in the first year to get all of those plans updated. We're asking for discharge monitoring reports, DMR submittals. Treatment plants are used to this. A lot of the towns are not. These are monthly reports about what comes out of your CSO every month. These have to start being submitted during the first year. System characterization that I just talked about. And we want all of your outfalls, your treatment plants, your pump stations GPSed. That's a big task to get done. I&I, inflow infiltration. We're asking that you review your rules, your ordinances, your sewer use agreements, and submit a schedule to change those agreements so that we can get on board and get your member municipalities to do appropriate I&I work and to make sure that that happens. We want you to delineate all your combined sewer and separate sewer areas. I showed you that map showing what's combined and what's separate. We talked about new signs at the outfalls, new websites, creating a hotline or a website. This is just a highlight of some of the things that are due in the 9 minimum controls during the first year. We also have long-term control plan requirements during the first year. Your system characterization, we have compliance monitoring. And so we're asking that you go out into your waterway and actually measure the pathogen levels in your waterways today so that in 5 years, in 10 years, in 15 years, we can go back and measure them again and know that the improvements you've done are making a difference. So we're asking for baseline monitoring right now to know where we're going in the future. You have to choose your approach. You have to decide what are you doing, how are you going to do this, and you need to coordinate with your hydraulically connected municipalities. This is our proposed schedule of changes. We've gotten a lot of feedback. I've gone across the state and talked about this permit as it's been out draft. It's a very tight schedule. Like I said, we really have to hit the ground running on this. We need to get our long-term control plans done. Now, the permits themselves were written with long-term control plans being due in 3 years. That is very, very ambitious. And again, in order to encourage all of the towns, municipalities, and treatment facilities to work together, when you've notified me in writing that your communities are willing to work together to submit one long-term control plan, your final permit will have a 5-year compliance schedule instead of a 3-year, because we understand, number one, that's the best way to go. You're going to end up with a much better long-term control plan. But number two, it takes time. It takes time to coordinate and to get together, and so we understand that. And so here's a little preview of, we've extended some of the dates in here. So if you're doing your 5-year plan, you've got a little extra time. And some of the things on the 3-year we've also done as well. Carrie's been notifying me. I've got 5 minutes, 3 minutes. I'm down to 1 minute right now. So I'm going to wrap up. These are, again, very, very broad overview of what's in your permit. This is an ambitious schedule. It can't be done alone. We have to do it together. We are doing it together. We've had unprecedented cooperation with EPA. I'm glad that you guys are here today. We've really worked hard. We've learned a lot about what EPA has done across the entire nation, and we've taken those lessons and used them here in our permit in New Jersey. And again, I encourage you, I invite all of you. This is a project that's going to make a difference. This is a project that you'll look back on 5 years, 10 years, 15 years, and say, I was a part of it. And just by being here in this room today, you are already a part of it. And I get kind of excited when I talk about this because, 28 years of reviewing sewer lines, this is pretty exciting. We can make a difference in our urban towns and improve the waterways for our citizens. We can make a difference. We can do it right now. In my spare time, when I'm not busy doing sewer systems and all this other stuff, I'm a writer and an author, and so I want to just borrow a little quote from Jean Houston. And she says, "These are the times and we are the people." So let's do this. Let's do this. We can do it now. I thank all of you for being here. Feel free to call me, call anybody on my team, on my staff. We're available. We want to make this work, and I'm very excited. Thank you all for your attention. Go ahead.